This is actually not an easy thing for me to admit and say out loud. I used to be a really mean person. And I mean really, really mean. Now, if you asked people about that, they wouldn't tell you that. I'm sure if you asked them, they'd go, "Oh yeah, Jonathan, he's a nice guy." But it wasn't true. I was a really mean person, even a bully. The thing is, they didn't know that because I was never mean to them. And I was never really mean to anybody else. I was only mean to myself. I would say things to myself that I would never say to anybody else. And I sat there for years and years and just took that abuse, my own abuse. Since then, I've spoken to a lot of people. And what I've discovered is that I'm not really that unique. A lot of people are mean to themselves. And through these conversations with myself and with others, I've come to believe this. The most important relationship that you will ever have is the relationship with yourself. The most important relationship you will ever have is your relationship with yourself. But there's one really big thing that gets in the way of this relationship, and that's fear. It's really the only thing that holds us back. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of the unknown, fear of not having enough, fear of having too much, fear of what everyone else is going to think of us. But underneath all those fears, there's really only one fear. And that's the fear of not being loved. The number one motivator of every single one of our actions is the need to feel as if we're loved. Of course, then we can ask, loved by whom? And we mostly focus our attention on being loved by other people. So we build up a system, we create a system around us that creates a feeling as if other people are admiring us. So we buy new clothes and new shoes, we get a new car and a bigger house and the latest iPhone, whatever gadgets you can get, anything that will get someone else to notice us and give us that little nod of approval. Yes, you're okay. You got something. You look good. And here's what happens. When we get that admiration, when we get that nod of approval, we begin to like ourselves. We begin to like ourselves. And when we like ourselves, we actually become happier. And that's all any of us really are looking for. We want to feel happier, which doesn't come from the fact that someone else liked us. It comes from the fact that we liked ourselves. And if you want continued happiness, it's loving ourselves. Unconditional self-love. You see, while we think the love we're seeking comes from others, the love we actually want comes from inside of us. And while we think changing outside circumstances will help us love ourselves better, the truth is we need to start loving ourselves first. And here's where the magic really happens. When you love yourself first, all those other people that you were seeking approval from, they start admiring you and loving you as well. It's automatic. When you begin to love yourself, the world around you changes dramatically. So then, of course, the question is, how do we love ourselves? Especially if we're not really that happy with where we are in our lives at this moment, and we've made all these mistakes in the past that have brought us to this point where we don't really like ourselves that much. So here are 3 steps. 3 steps to begin the process of self-love. The first step is gratitude. And the reason for gratitude is I find it's one of the simplest ways to change from a negative emotional state to a positive emotional state. You see, we have about 70,000 thoughts a day, 70,000 thoughts one day. And here's the funny thing about those thoughts. 95% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday. Now, here's the not so funny thing about it. 80% of those thoughts are negative. And we have to begin to flip that equation so that 80% of our thoughts are positive. That's 4 positive thoughts for every 1 negative thought. We're not looking to get rid of the negative thoughts. I don't even know if we could if we tried. But that's not the goal. The negative thoughts actually keep us alive. The negative thoughts come from our survival mechanism. So if all you want to do is survive, stick with it. Have all the negative thoughts you want. But if your goal is to thrive, then we need to switch that equation to 80% positive thoughts. Because sustained change only comes from a positive emotional state. So we're going to practice gratitude. We're going to do this together. I hope you'll join me. Before we start, I want you just to check in with yourself. But really check in with yourself. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling now? And be honest with yourself. Not what you want to feel, not what you think you should feel. What are you feeling right now on a scale of 1 to 10? You're not going to share it with anybody. And now I want you to close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to bring into your mind something you're grateful for. Anything. And if a lot of thoughts are running through your mind, don't worry about it. Just pick one. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Make it really big in your mind so that it fills up your whole brain. And we're going to say together now, as you think this, we're going to say, I am grateful. So have this big vision in your head. We're going to say together, 1, 2, 3, I am grateful. And then let that image dissolve away and bring to your mind another image, something you're really, really grateful for. Make it big in your head. And let's say together, 1, 2, 3, everyone, I am grateful. And you can open your eyes now. You can keep them closed if you want. And just check in with yourself. Was there any change or no change? Is there any movement? If there is, notice it. And if not, that's okay. This is a practice. Practice gratitude. It's the first step in that process of unconditional self-love. The second is forgiveness. And not forgiving other people, but forgiving yourself. See, when other people make a mistake, we often try and help them. Oh, don't worry about it. It was a mistake. You'll be fine. Everybody makes mistakes. But when we make a mistake, we hold a grudge for a really long time. 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Your whole life, you're thinking about that thing that happened so long ago. So 2 things about forgiveness. First, this is the definition I use for forgiveness. I didn't make it up, but it's the one I use. Giving up the hope that the past can be any different. Giving up the hope that the past can be any different. So it doesn't condone what happened. Doesn't mean it's okay. It's just a simple understanding that no matter how much you think about it, it will not be any different. So we may as well release the pain. The second thing about forgiveness is it is a practice. And like anything, the more you practice, the better you get at it. So let's practice together. I want you to bring to mind something that you need to forgive yourself for. Don't make this the hardest thing, the biggest thing. This is not a marathon. This is a warm-up. But bring to mind something you need to forgive yourself for. And we're going to say together, I forgive myself. Have this image in your mind, and together, 1, 2, 3, I forgive myself. Now, if you didn't think of anything, it doesn't work. So really think of something. Have something in your head that you've done that you need to forgive yourself for. 1, 2, 3, I forgive myself. And just notice, maybe there's a release of something. Maybe there's a lot of resistance, and that's okay. Whatever you're feeling right now, allow that to be there. This is a practice. And if forgiving yourself right now is a little too much, there is another way to start this practice. I open myself to the possibility of one day forgiving myself. I open myself up to the possibility of one day forgiving myself. Open up the door to forgiveness and practice. The third step is love. Self-love, practicing self-love. And this practice does not come easy to many of us. Now, this is best practice in front of a mirror. We don't have any mirrors here tonight. So when you get home, look in the mirror and you can do this practice. But for now, we'll do it in our minds. I want you to bring into your mind a picture of yourself. And it can be yourself as you are today, or it can be an earlier version, a child version of yourself. And I want you to make it really big in your head. And I want you to look into your own eyes. And we're going to say, I love myself. Make this picture really big in your head. Everyone together. 1, 2, 3. I love myself. Now say it like you really mean it. Like you really love yourself. Like it's someone you want to be with. Look into your own eyes in your own mind. 1, 2, 3. I love myself. And just notice what comes up. Maybe there's a sense of openness. Maybe there's a lot of resistance. And that's fine if there is. Whatever's there, allow it to be. Honor that feeling. And if saying I love myself is a little too much today, there's another way in. I open myself up to the possibility of one day loving myself. I open myself up to the possibility of one day loving myself. Open up the door to self-love and practice. The teachings tell us that you could search the world over looking for someone more worthy of your love than yourself. And that person is not to be found anywhere. Now, let me add, if this whole idea of self-love is too big, maybe a little too daunting, that's okay too. Start with friendliness. Just be friendly to yourself. Give yourself a compliment once in a while. When you look in the mirror, you see that wrinkle, instead of being mad at it, have some compassion for it. If your body isn't exactly how you want it to be today, physically or mentally, don't be mean to it. Have some compassion for it. Practice friendliness. So this is what I want to leave you with. Instead of spending so much time and effort and energy on seeking the approval of others, spend that time on your relationship with yourself and create a loving relationship with yourself. Because when you love yourself first, when you love yourself unconditionally, everyone else starts loving you automatically. And when you love yourself, that prison of fear, those bars of fear that keep you stuck, they begin to dissolve away. And you begin to live a life filled with freedom and filled with love. And that's all any of us really wants, to feel loved by ourselves. The most important relationship you will ever have is your relationship with yourself. Consider making it a loving one. That's what I have tonight. Thank you.